Okay, so we have this trapezoid here, and they've given us one of the angles on the inside, and we're supposed to find the other ones. And they've also given us an angle that's on the outside. So one of the things that we need to keep in mind here is that the total of, anytime you have four corners, the total of their angles is going to be 360 degrees altogether. The other thing that you want to keep in mind, it has to do with what we call transversals. So I want to bring you over here to another shape for a moment. Whenever you have parallel lines that are cut by another line right here, and in this case, oops. So this is the line that's cutting them straight through, those parallel lines. Whenever you have that, this line forms some angles. The parallel lines, because they're parallel, if the top right angle here is A, let's say it's 70, for example, then the one that's in the same position of the intersection up here, here we have this intersection, the top right angle, top left, bottom right. So same thing here. If this is your intersection, like roads coming together, the top right, top left, bottom right. So if they're in the same position, then they have to have the same measurement. That's why I called this one A, and I can call this one A, because they're the same value. This A and this A are exactly the same. So if I told you that this A was 60 degrees, then you could assume that this A is 60 degrees. Now, the other thing that this tells us that we can trust all the time has to do with when two lines cross each other. Whatever this one is, the one that's nose to nose with it, called the opposite angle, this one, these two would have to be the same. So if this is 70, then this one would be 70. And so what's happening here is that, so if this one is A, then the one that's nose to nose with it over here is A. So these two have to be equal to each other. And so these two would be equal to each other. Then the third concept that I wanted to make sure that you understood had to do with when you have two angles that come together that form a straight line. And so here's this straight line here, and that straight line is formed by this angle and this angle coming together. And when you have a straight line, it's 180 degrees. So from here all the way over to here, this straight line is 180 degrees. We could also say that this angle and this angle, forming this straight line, that this angle with this angle, these are what we would call supplementary angles, where they form a straight line together. So the total of these would have to be 180. So like I said earlier, if this one was 60, then we would know this one's 60, and this one's 60, and this one's 60. But we would also know that this one next to it, because the two of these together have to equal 180, I could say, oh, what's 180 minus 60? That makes this one 120. And because these two form a straight line, then 60 and 120 here. And notice these two angles are nose to nose, okay? So like up here on this, if these two are alike, that means these two, whatever they are like each other. So if this was 60 and 60, then this would have to be 120 and 120, the nose to nose thing. So these two angles are nose to nose, and they're in the same position as these down here. So they're 120 also, which makes sense because 60 and 120 gives you this 180-degree line that was formed here. Or 60 and 120 on this side, we could say form the straight line. So that's the kind of ideas that you have to take into doing this next problem. So right here, when they gave us this angle that extended off of this trapezoid, look how this almost looks like that transversal we were just working with. So now, if we know that this angle is 78, then we know that up here, this angle is 78. And if this is 78, then this is 78 because they're nose to nose. So x is 78. We can also find t because these two together, the 78 and t, have to form the straight line of 180. So 180 minus 78 gives us 102. So now we know t is 102. Then if you come over here to k, well, we know that these four together have to equal 360. So if we add up these, we have 68, 78, and 102. It equals 248. So 360 would be, we have to make this up to total 360. So we'll subtract that 248 from 360. And we find out this has to be 112.